Hi, I'm John Benson, and today I'm going to talk about Stranger Things, all the seasons 1, 2, and 3. If there's going to be a fourth season, it's not out yet, but I'm certainly looking forward to it. That'd be wonderful. Um, the first three seasons had their ups and downs. I certainly think the first season was by far the best. It was innovative, different, and at the same time had all these references to things in the past, particularly the 80s, and it did a fantastic job of referencing the 80s and honoring the 80s and not being like anything else in the 80s. It really took its own form, it was its own movie or series, and, uh, and did a fantastic job. It was so familiar in some ways because of all those references and what they were doing, and it was also um, so new and different at the same time. I mean, um, a movie with a kid trapped alone against odds, or something evil, wasn't exactly new. It's happened before. There was Labyrinth, in a way. Geez, lots of movies from the 80s. And it refers to Home Alone, but there are also many other references other than Stranger Things did a really neat thing also. How and I'm talking about the first season. Well, and they and season 2 just did the same thing over again, but season 3 um, went. It had some new things they brought into it, which was good for the writing. But they still did this kind of the way they organized it. The story was very interesting, where they had a story with the kids, um, the the younger set, and that has its own, things that reminds me of, E.T. Or the Goonies, and many other movies, where the kids are the main part of the movie, but it also had teenagers, where high schoolers, in the in in the vein, or the in the way that like Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, uh, uh, Friday the 13th, all those movies with teenagers who are just on the verge of adulthood, and have their movies, and all those horror movies from the 80s were, and it was so fun to see the references that Stranger Things did with that. Then it had the adults, so it had these, well, at least three different parts, or organizations, and uh, in, particularly I think the third season, they were consciously separated and then brought together in a good, in a natural way. It worked how they did that, and it's fun to see that too. And the adults have their own set of movies or horror movies, like Amityville Horror and other movies, which more focus on the adults. I suppose there was Poltergeist, which had adults and kids together also. I mean, of course, families. Um, but particularly in season 3, those three different levels are they switch to kind of an A, B, and C story, um, but they do bring them all together, which is very well done. The writing, something I like talking about when I do reviews. The writing's particularly well done in Stranger Things, and one of the reasons why it was so compelling. But also another obvious reason it was so compelling was the cast. The casting was wonderful. The casting director should get their own award. Huh, great, air blowers, wonderful. So bringing Winona Ryder in to Stranger Things it was going to get me to at least take a look at it to begin with. Um, even by the time I did, I mean, I certainly heard a lot of buzz about Stranger Things. And so, but they did just a fantastic. I mean, Winona Ryder wasn't just good as a name, it was somewhat perfect. I mean, she did a fantastic job. The writing also did a fantastic job setting up um, just the character that Winona Ryder plays is so perfect for Winona Ryder, particularly in the first season. And the other people they brought in, in the second season they brought in other people, guest stars, particularly actors from the '80s. It was so fun to see, and constantly playing with this kind of '80s theme, and bringing it, bringing in actors to do that also was it was a lot of fun. They did a great job, and the actor who played Hopper did a fantastic job. I think particularly in season one. Uh, uh, in season one, I guess there was just a lot more for the actor to do writing wise. They had they had set up uh, these contradictions and I just seem fun things to play. A sheriff who was drinking, drinking on the job, and having issues, but still, and this is good writing because even though they set that up, he was still a good cop. He was still absolutely there for the community, and uh, was an effective and good law enforcement person, despite his flaws, and he just gets better. So great, they did that extremely well in my opinion. Maybe some law enforcement professionals would disagree, but I thought it was very fun. It was very dramatic, and it worked very well for the character and for the movie. Um, the issue I had most with that I wanted to talk about music. That I guess there's not a whole lot to talk about because it really is. They did this references also constantly to '80s music, and the music they used worked so well, and again a lot of fun. It seems they had a lot of fun with it, and it carried over, and so it was a lot of fun to watch. So I'm very glad with a lot of their music choices. They did it particularly well. Um, the the whole idea of having a reality and an alternate reality, which in this case was called the Upside Down. It's been done before. There was altered states in the '80s. There were there's in whatever Rick and Morty currently. That's not an '80s thing, but this idea of having alternate universes and things isn't necessarily new. But the way they did it, that it's upside down. It's a negative to the positive. But it's right here, and it's in the same place at the same time in a way. Just kind of a different phase in this whatever evil phase. What was a really interesting story innovation, which they really pulled off, and it really worked for a horror movie, and there were some definitely scary parts to it. It it was well done. So, and then and that was season one. Season one certainly got a lot of acclaim from critics and I think viewers. Um, and so, season two. Season two, kind of like I hear, or what I think about a lot of great albums or great bands, particularly in the '80s, and then they put out the album after their huge hit album, and it seems like the producers or whoever is in charge, not necessarily the band, is saying, "Hey, just give us some of the same, give us the same stuff again." And in season two of it just seems to me, everybody has their own opinion, but in my opinion, having that same, they did the same sort of story without as much issue, and it, it was fun to see the characters again. It was fun to see the guests that they pulled in, or whatever, the cameos and the different actors they had. Great, fine, um, but it wasn't nearly as fun, and it's hard. It's hard to have that. You can't have that same kind of innovation again, in a way, doing the same thing, because it's not as innovative. It's not as new. It's not as fresh. So fine, but they did it all very much over again in season two. Season three, they do it over again, but with the twist of the Russians, and it's that was a lot of fun, because that's something that was done in the 80s a lot. Whatever, Red Dawn, but not just that. In TV shows and everything else, Russians were a big issue in the 80s, in the national discussion, or whatever else. So it, they hit that right too. So it worked for that series, for Stranger Things, to do that. So that was fun. What they did with it, there was a lot of fun things they did with that. In references to whatever Terminator or whatever, uh, Red Dawn, or whatever else, were 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 a lot of fun, but still not really to the level of the first season. And I can, I'm I really want to give. I don't want to. I don't want to detract from it. It really should be how great the first season was. Um, and so it's hard to live up to. And I think they, probably were thinking about that first season and rewriting it and doing everything they could to bring ideas to it, probably for years and years. They were thinking about that. And then they only have, a limited amount of time, 9 months or 8 months or 6 months, to write the next season. So they don't have as much time, the writers, everybody involved, to really do that. Plus, you can't just keep having, like, the sheriff continuing to do the things that he did, like drinking in season one. So it's just not as fun. I hope they find a way to bring some of the fun and edginess back to it. If they're going to do a season 4, that would be great to see. I'm sure people will watch it anyway, just because the characters have been compelling, and it's going to be good to watch. People will want to see how things go. I think they, in season 3, dealing with the kids in particular getting older, or even the teenagers, trying to go into adulthood and all that stuff, was I don't know, that I commend that they attempted to do it, that they didn't just keep it like what happened to a TV series called Welcome Back, Kotter, where they tried to keep the same actors in high school as seniors for 5-6 years. That didn't work either. You got to grow your characters. They attempted to do that. I don't think that it was particularly great, but they tried it. I mean, I don't think that there was what do I mean by that? I mean that I particularly didn't see really any chemistry between the kids, when they're trying to show some kind of love interest with the kids. I'm sure that's going to be difficult, but it really didn't seem apparent. What they did with the teenagers was a little bit better. And what was particularly good in season 3 was what they did with the character I call Hare, or whatever. His character did a really good job of that kind of love interest, not love interest, and his character development was really more interesting than anybody else's. But again, maybe my own personal opinion. I really just want to say I really have been enjoying the writing. I'm very happy that a series like Stranger Things was able to be made. I doubt like something like that would have actually been able to be made in the 1980s. So, very happy to see it. They did a wonderful job, particularly season one. Season one, by far the more outstanding or the most outstanding of any of the seasons. Um, as far as writing quality, acting quality, it was all there in season one. And so a really good series. Stranger Things, loved watching it, and hope everybody's staying safe. Talk to you later.